Okay, so yeah, Nila House. Nila House is in Jaipur, and it is actually a CSR project. So this has been really interesting. Um, it's been really interesting because for for all of you who've already spoken before me, it's more about your own history and your own families that you're talking about, and the heritage homes that you've sort of brought forward towards the world. For us, it's more historical in terms of the Indian culture, which is a really important part of who we are. And I particularly have been working with historic cultures and within Rajasthan for about 20 years now. And this project, Nila House, is actually a corporate social responsibility project. It is part of the JCB brand, the brand that makes earth moving excavators. And the family has been invested in India for about 40 years. And it's interesting because corporate social responsibility is actually now started, sort of coming up with various projects in India. But the JCB brand has worked with corporate social responsibility now for 20 years. We have three major projects, verticals. One is the Lady Bamford Charitable Trust, one is the Lady Bamford Foundation, and one is the Literature Foundation. Lady Bamford, because she's the founder and patron of all the projects, and her history, as some of you may know, is in the organic and is in the sustainable field. She's worked with organic farms, and she has a brand for women's products, which are also organic and sustainable in UK, based out of Staffordshire and Gloucestershire. And she's actually worked on responsible farming based in with traditional methods, and across board. And she's worked in India with the artisans. So she always had this. Idea that she wanted to um, bring forward the artisans, and actually celebrate um, their skill, their love for the crafts and for heritage, and actually showcase that in the most excellent way. Um, Nila House stems from. Oh, this doesn't seem to be moving forward.
Maybe, in this case, maybe don't do the presentation.
There you go. I think that's better.
Good.
Yeah, so Nila House, it's the initiative of the Lady Bamford Charitable Foundation, and it was set up in 2017. But but we've worked with artisans and crafts over the years. But the building itself, which I'm going to talk about, actually was launched in 2019. The word Nila comes from blue, which also means temple, which means nest, which means moon. And it sort of captures the spirit of Nila House, because it's a sort of a place to gather, and it's a place for beauty, and to showcase the skills of handicrafts, in India. The actual idea of Mila began many, many years ago. And, being a sustainable crop, indigo was once grown widely across India, its cultivation enriching in the soil, and it was grown and generating local employment in farming and traditional skills. However, introduction to synthetic dyes in the 19th century, coupled with a revolt against India, forced the cultivation of the crop to decline. The impact of the synthetic dyes in many areas, the chemical discharge from the synthetic dyes, the pollutants surrounding the soil, etc., are the conversations that actually were brought about when we started working at Nila House. How can we work with organic? How can we work with natural? How can we work with cultural? How can we work with heritage? And go back and not only teach ourselves, reteach ourselves, but also, work with the artisans who know, work with the artisans who want to go back to their heritage and culture, and actually, rework the rework the cycle. So the center actually is a center of excellence in Jaipur, which through its various facilities and programs, we sort of provide an intellectual space for the artisan communities, as well as designers and interactive spaces. I'm just going to go back now into how Nila House was actually found. So, again, the organization went around, I think, Jaipur for a couple of years trying to find the right space. Lady Bamford was quite clear that she didn't want to build from the ground, but she wanted to actually restore, because the whole ethos was to go back to history and culture. So if you see the orange portion here, this was the old walled city of Jaipur. And this was the new city of Jaipur, which was started building in the 1930s. And Nila House was built in the late 1940s. There were two homes that were built together and by a family. Unfortunately, due to some unforeseen circumstances, only one home was lived in. And even till date, only one home was lived in. And Mila House actually was, for the past 20 or 25 years, has had nobody in the building. So this is Nila House as it was when we took over in 2017. I've lived in Jaipur for 20 years, and I've sort of gone up and down this road looking at this beautiful building, which was dilapidating. We could see monkeys and we could see dogs and we could see, all sorts of animals, but, no sort of inhabitation at all, nobody working on it. It used to hurt because, especially working in heritage and culture, you used to feel that, oh, this is going to be another building that's going to be pulled down and there's going to be a multi-storied sort of hotel or something that's going to come up. And then this house was sort of identified by the Lady Bamford Foundation, and we felt that this was the best place for Nila House to be housed. A building which has its historical culture, a building which retains it, because actually nobody's lived there. So there hasn't really been too much tampering. It just needs refurbishment and renovation. And a building which, if you see the central courtyard, has rooms around it. And this is a very, very traditional sort of Indian home, where there was always a central courtyard and there were rooms around it. And the central courtyard was used as a space for people to come and meet during the day, to cook, even in India, you make your own masalas, you grind your own masalas too. So you wash your masalas and you put them out in the sun. So, this was the space that would be used. I'm going to go back to the layout of the building. There is a basement in the building, which is actually quite astonishing, that in the 1940s, there was a building made with a basement with a ladder room. The ground floor has rooms around it, as well as a porch in the front, as well as a large kitchen towards the back over here. And then, of course, there's a terrace on top, which had, so it was just a single-story building, and we've made a few bamboo sort of pavilions in there. So this was the renovation of the building. It took from 2017 to about 2019, a slow process. I think for a few months in the middle, there was somebody who had come and rented the accommodation, the building, and they actually renovated with cement and a bit of brick. But that is actually not the traditional way of restoration. So what we wanted also to do is to create this building as a showcase of built heritage restoration techniques. So we actually stripped the building back to the bone, took away all the plaster and the cement that was used for some kind of renovation, I think in the late 1970s. And what we got below it was stone and what you call and a lime. So the way the restoration is done is with lime and with local sand, which is a red sand, and you mix it together. And in that you put a jaggery and you put tamarind and a couple of other things, and you make a paste out of it. Now this paste needs to actually ferment for a couple of months before it actually is put onto the building. And they say that the cement has a life of 100 years. But this technique of sand and lime has a life after 100 years. So this is the technique that was also used in all our forts in Rajasthan. and I'm sure many other places across the country as well. But our forts in Rajasthan, which are hundreds of years and thousands of years old, are still sort of standing, and it's quite amazing. So this is what we use. This is the technique that we used to restore Nila House. Here you can see in August 2017 we took the building and what it sort of looked like, clearing it out, and 2019 is what we had, the basic structures, which was refurbished. And then of course in October 2019 we had the finished structure, and we launched Nila House as the center of excellence for the preservation and promotion of crafts and arts. It has now also more become like a hub for a cultural space. I think the people of Jaipur sort of see it as an iconic building and an iconic space for interaction, a creative interaction, whether it's arts, whether it's crafts, whether it's even music or dance. We have the courtyard that you all saw in the beginning, as well as this front space that you see is a great space for poetry, reading, for book launches, etc., which we try and do at least once a month. This is the building as it is today, the central courtyard. We have a shop space, which showcases products that we design with artisans and with communities in Rajasthan, as well as in a few other parts of the country, West Bengal, Madhya Pradesh, Odisha. We have a textile gallery in the basement, and it showcases, at the moment, it's housing a private collection by Mr. Brij Bhasin, who is a collector of crafts, and he has graciously lent us his collection for a year. And it's really interesting because visitors can actually see the traditional crafts and the skill that the traditional craftsmen had, and how it sort of translates into a modern product, which we showcase in our shop. We also have workshop rooms around the courtyard. So if I go back here, the courtyard has workshop rooms around it, as well as a library. So these are the workshop rooms. There's a block print room, there's a dyeing room, and this is our dye bath here with indigo leaves in it. And we have a library. And we have a spinning room as well. So the idea of these workshop rooms was not only, for us to use within Mila, which we do, of course, every single day, but also for artisans to come and, a space for interaction with designers, with artists, with scholars, with students. The library hosts books, on textiles and crafts and design. And it's an amazing space because when we have artists here and when we have artisans here from the community, I see many of them sort of sitting and looking through the books. The language might not be theirs, but it's so interesting seeing them sitting and looking at these books, which on a usual basis they might not have access to. So the aims and objectives of Nila House, is to basically support artisan communities and celebrate and preserve the rich Indian heritage crafts traditions. It wants to create a dynamic platform for artisan exchange and innovation. And it's a place for exploration for contemporary interpretations of the traditional craft skills as well. It's a space where we want to actually talk about, the conversations. So in the past, for instance, the past few years, I think, there's a growing conversation around preservation of handwoven textiles and the promotion of sustainable design. So it's a space where, we want to provide a space for people to come together and work on these conversations, to look at policy, to look at how we can make life better. The pandemic has not been great for the artisan community, we're trying to support them as much as we can. The four projects that we actually work under are research and development, which also includes archiving and documentation. We do creative innovation with, as I said before, with designers and with artisans and with artists. We have activities and programming, which actually spreads across board from children to, to just interested individuals, to actually very serious technical workshops. So we have a space for that, as well as for experimentation. And of course, market facilitation for the artisan, because that is key. Today, when we have conversations with artisans, the first question is, yes, of course, we'd love to do indigo, but where's the market? So I think, Nila, we're very small. We're starting very small. I know the conversation of indigo and the conversation of natural dye and the conversation of hand spun and hand woven is being really spoken about, and slow fashion and sustainable fashion. And it's something that, many individuals and many organizations have been working on for years. And I just feel that, another small organization working on the same thing will sort of, again, make the movement grow. Um, we are doing indigo farming. So in the back end of this building, which is our center of excellence, there's some projects on with the community, with the artisans that we have been working on for the past year and a half. The first is indigo farming. Indigo farming is still done in West Bengal, and that's basically where most of the indigo is coming from. However, we feel in Rajasthan, it used to grow years ago in the wild. It still grows in the wild, but it's not really been used for dyeing purposes anymore or extraction. So we really want to start that conversation again. In Gujarat, yes, there is still indigo being used in the communities, in the artisan communities. But the conversation also is about natural indigo, because today German indigo, which is sort of which has an influx in the market, is actually a chemical and it's polluting the land. So the conversation with the artisans always is that, yes, of course, it's great to grow the indigo. It's great to and move that value chain. So if you grow it, you're able to extract the indigo and actually use it in your vat. There you have the whole value chain, which is sustainable because it's in your own workshop space. So that's one of the projects that we're looking at. We are actually already working with 5 small artisan units in 5 different states. So we're actually looking at how indigo is grown in 5 different states of the country, and documenting it so that we can grow further. Artisan support, again, is very major. We work with artisans who have indigo vats, might be using German indigo, but are willing to look at natural indigo. So the support they need to sort of have linkages with our value chain, as well as, of course, design intervention, and then, of course, market facilitation. During the lockdown, one thing that we did again was to work with hand spin and hand spinners in Rajasthan and Gujarat. And this is something that I think for years, for many, hundreds of years, people have been spinning, but again, diminishing. There are women in the communities that we've identified who know how to spin, anywhere, and the oldest are nearly 80 years old. So, it was important for us to, again, go back to creating a value chain, not just buying hand spun fabric, or not just buying, hand spun yarn to weave it, but actually, where is that value chain going to start from? Of course, it starts all the way back into farming, which is, again, a conversation that we're already having, how to grow local indigenous cotton, and then take it to the spinner, who will spin it, and then the weaver, and then the natural dye. So that's the entire trajectory of and the value chain that we're trying to create. During the lockdown, we actually did a lot of trainings with women in the community, on a one-to-one basis. And we've actually managed to identify 30 women in Gujarat and about 60 women in Rajasthan, an hour from Jaipur, who can spin, and we're working on them in terms of their quality, etc. So women and sort of interaction with women and women empowerment is really also key to our organization, as well as the Lady Bamford Charitable Trust, who works with communities all over the country. So this is Nila House. Again, for you, there's the archives gallery, there's the shop, there's artisan interaction, their collaborations, and their programming activities. I don't know if I'll be able to play this. It's just a very short video. Just to end by saying that, during the lockdown, again, this is something that we've also managed to do, which is amazing, which we are all, a part of today, is actually go global. So, I think we're also comfortable in our own spaces. And even at Mila, we used to have workshops for people who would come to Mila, or would be in Jaipur, or would be traveling and would ask us for workshops or for programs, or come and see the space. But during the pandemic, we've actually gone online, not only with our products, but our workshops, as well as talks and interactive sessions with artisans and the community, to spread the word of handmade in India, and to work on through our various projects. So I think it's really interesting, in a way, what the pandemic has done for us, because we've actually gone external, and we're trying to find new collaborations worldwide, and this is one of them. It's amazing to be on this panel, and thank you, Mimi, for having us here.